Well, good afternoon, and thank you all for being here. We're excited to get to talk to you. My name is Jamey Webster. I'm a senior sales consultant for Korn Ferry. I've been working with Miller Heiman and Korn Ferry as a consultant for about the past 12 years. Prior to that, I was the CEO of an oil and gas software company here in Houston, and then worked in leadership at Halliburton. And I'm joined today by my friend, Patrick Hogan, who is the Chief Business Evolution Officer at Black Veatch.
Black Veatch, yeah. Thank you, Jamey. Thanks for having us and all the work that you and Korn Ferry do to support us every day.
Well, appreciate you agreeing to do this, Patrick. And I guess my first question that we have to ask is, Black Veatch at CERAWeek, kind of give that background.
Yeah, we're one of the leading innovators in design, consulting, construction of all the critical energy infrastructure that the world needs. So all of our clients are here, and we're here to meet with them and learn with them, and also kind of just listen to all the kind of the buzz that's happening here, Jamey, and making sure that we're putting things ahead to meet where all the big deadlines are and all the demand for energy.
Excellent,
yeah.
Excellent. Well, I asked Patrick to join me because, as you can see, our topic is talking about the new Energy Sales Playbook. How do we drive success in this evolving market that we're expected to work in? And Patrick and I have been working together for some time.
Yep.
And so I thought, what better than to go straight to somebody that's been a leader and an innovator in doing just that for so many years, including Honeywell, I guess, as the CCO of Honeywell. But as we were thinking through what we'd hope to communicate to you today, we started to do a little bit of digging into the research that Korn Ferry conducts around buying habits. Miller Heiman, Korn Ferry have been looking into the buying process and the selling process for many years today. And what we found, I guess, ultimately, Patrick, was that buyers don't necessarily hate salespeople, but they're not that impressed with them today either.
Okay, have you been talking to my boss?
Yeah. And as we dug into that, what you have to know is this, what we found in the research is that about 48% of buyers said that sellers are just not adding value to the decision-making process today. Now, the other 52% said sellers meet their expectations, but as we dug and pushed a little bit harder on that, what we found was what that meant was when I call them up and ask them for pricing, most of them give it to me. That's driving some problems. Ultimately, what we found is that 78% of buyers told us in that study that they do not see sellers as problem solvers. And that's a problem, because if we can't be seen as trusted partners in our client's environment, then quite frankly, we're wasting our money on business development. So my excitement for having you here is I know that you've been tackling all of these problems. So I guess my first question to you is, what changes have you seen as it relates to kind of the buyer-seller relationship and in sales in general today?
And I think CERAWeek's a good microcosm of that. So 10 years ago, it was mainly molecules companies here, and then we started seeing electron companies coming, and now we've got all these databyte and gigabyte companies here as well, but people aren't staying in their swim lanes, so they're not really sticking to the rule book of typical sales. And so you've got molecule companies wanting to create electricity, and you've got data companies thinking, I'll go behind the meter and I'll get my own power somehow as well, just because of the great demand. And so that's really, the client disruption is really disrupting the seller paradigm. And they're having to learn just the whole new vocabulary about creating new sets of relationships, new kinds of business language, and really creating new kinds of ROI calculations that frankly they haven't had to do before. And they're having to bring together a much bigger team to be much more relevant and compelling for their clients.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a big piece of it, is that realization that you can't just be the Lone Ranger anymore. Yeah. I joked with you on the call the other day that my dad used to come to these conferences and he'd carry contracts with him in his briefcase because you could meet somebody, have a drink and sign it up. Now we've got these long sales cycles. We've got so many people. I mean, most of the research is showing 6 to 7 voices minimum involved in decision making. And so when you think about that, and I know you've got a unique path to where you are today in that you've got a PhD in chemistry. So
it was a long time ago.
But how do you make that leap? And I guess from Black Veatch's perspective, what does it look like? What's the profile of a seller look like today?
Yeah, I think in order to meet our clients where they really want us to be, Jamey, we're really upgrading and upskilling our sellers every day in being better strategists first, right? They've really got to understand how the boardroom makes a decision. You mentioned those 6 or 7 decision makers. It's probably 6 or 7 departments. Right. It might be 80 or 90 people that have to make a consensual big capital decision And that's really complicated. And the seller really has to understand how they're making decisions maybe over a 30 to 40 year ROI for that asset or those big infrastructure investments. So it's very, very high stakes to do that. Also, they have to bring together many more different kinds of solutions and capabilities. So the day's gone, I think, where a seller, maybe like myself, had a technical background and I was the best technical guy to go talk to the best customer, that single conduit, that's changing and is no longer relevant or enough or effective. Particularly where, as you mentioned, the buyer is putting more distance between the technology providers before they can come in and actually help to do that. So we're having to really raise the game about being much more able to tell a longer range vision, give a lot more credibility to this complex ecosystem that has to sign those big capital checks, feel good about A, making a decision to spend, and B, make a good decision with me as the right partner, and that takes a lot of trust to do that. And they're really then having to understand this myriad of relationships to do that. So when we're looking at our CRM systems, maybe for a multi-billion-dollar deal that took maybe 3 or 4 years for us to go track and close, there's something of the order of at least 80 Black Veatch people have talked to well over 100 decision makers in that company. And when we map it using AI and great tools like that, Jamey, it's a beautiful mind. It's a lot of red string all going everywhere. And those key account sellers, they have to be the navigator, the air traffic control that sees all of it coming together and bring it all together to be differentiated ahead of the pack. Because if a client gets confused and thinks everyone's the same, they either don't make a decision at all or they just push back and elongate or just commoditize.
So I have to ask because, I'm not going to call you a unicorn, Patrick, but there's not a lot of PhD chemists that are like, let me get into business development. So as you guys look at the profile and you find somebody that as closely matches it as you can find, how do you develop them? How are you bringing them in? How are you getting them on board and getting them up to speed as quick as possible?
Yeah, I got into selling by accident because I thought my science was so great. And then my sales team said, well, we can't sell it. It doesn't work, or the client didn't like it. So I went out on the road and found out it's really tough, right, to do that. And so we really are training people to be very curious, to learn a lot about the markets and all the regulations and the incentives out there. They really, often we find ways to find financing for our customers so that they can actually fund or co-fund these projects or to do that. So it isn't just about understanding a piece of the marketplace or maybe the next step in the value chain, it's really understanding it all. They also have to be able to coordinate and bring together ecosystems of other partners to do that. No single company can do it all, particularly for the large clients here, Jamey. So we have to be very nimble about bringing together sophisticated groups of people in alliances and joint ventures and prime and sub relationships to bring all the right equipment together, because if you can bring it all in a way that is de-risked or is likely to happen, we're talking about projects that might not get delivered online till 2032 or something, you're going to go to the top of the pack in terms of people's decision making to do that. So we're giving them a lot of training around the process of how to have a conversation, how to deconstruct what the client needs, bring it back to what we can do. Be a lot better at telling a bigger story and bringing the whole team. And when you bring the whole team of a company and all those partners, you just raise the difference that you can deliver in value for the client. And then you have to become a math whiz, which I'm not good at, but you really then have to really understand, how do I create the economics and the modeling that the client needs in a way that they feel good? And we've heard a lot in the last couple of days about tariffs and uncertainty. When you're making long-term, multi-decade investments, you have to understand just the future state and de-risk as much as possible. So we bring a lot of all this together, and our sellers then really have to have those navigational skills externally within the client organization, understand that. And then the internal sell is, how do I navigate back within my company to get all the executives aligned to say, we want to dedicate these precious, skilled engineering resources to your project for your client. And that's another complicated art and science for the seller to do that. So there is a real science to selling,
yes,
which I enjoyed as much as the relationship building that's super important too.
That balance between art and science is so important because they're both needed today.
Yeah.
You guys are a global organization. I mean, you have people spread all over the world. What does it mean to bring process into the sales organization in terms of trying to put people on a common language and a common approach? so that whether I'm dealing with somebody in India or dealing with somebody in South Texas, I still feel like I'm dealing with Black Veatch. How does that
Yeah,
look?
it's very important. I think a lot of our clients too, Jamie, they expect us to be able to deliver an outcome in different parts of the world to the same quality, safety, and on time and on budget to do that. We're a simple one. We have one single CRM instance, so all the data is in a centralized area. All of that data also goes through all the way through to, we use it to connect to our resource planning tool as well. So because our intellectual property is us, our people, we're all employee owners at Black Veatch, and so when we take a deal that is in our pipeline that's coming down to maybe the last 6 months of that scheduling, on behalf of our clients, we have to guarantee might be able to muster 500, 1,000 construction workers, engineers, environmentalists, data scientists that have to be in a particular zip code, usually a very remote part of the world, and they're going to be there for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's a big commitment. And so we have to kind of use the sales data is used extensively by the rest of the corporation for purchasing, for risk management, for resource planning. And so it becomes kind of a circular loop. And that feeds back into our risk assessment of, can we take that deal with our client and do a great job and feel good about it? And we both have that mutual benefit of, this was a good deal. We want to do more and more with the client as we go forward.
So last question I'll ask you is this, because one of the things I've been so impressed with, as you and I have worked together, is you've really led around the idea of bringing a tech stack to sales.
Yes.
To empowering the salespeople through technology. Right. So tell me a little bit about what Black Veatch is doing from that perspective.
Well, you mentioned sellers and process. Those two words don't normally go together in a good sentence, right? Do that. And so we're trying to use our tech stack, and we think of it more as kind of a revenue tech stack versus a sales or a marketing, very separated. We want to enable our sellers to do less tasks and do more high quality work in front of the client to do that. And really, we're in a kind of a trust and journey mode as we go forward. So a good example about, hey, I clicked you on LinkedIn and I want to make a relationship with you. That data now goes straight into Salesforce with all the email and the telephone numbers. They don't have to retype. We're looking at predictive sessions within their Teams calls and the other communications. And it says, look, you really haven't had the right level of conversations with the right seniority, and we haven't used these terms. These are the ones that typically win for us. So we can just give you, I call it like the third coach or the digital coach that says, look, I'm the seller. I think I know what's going on. The sales leader says, well, I've watched you and been out on the road with you. Maybe you're a little optimistic here. And then the digital coach says, typically, these are the patterns that enable us to say the client is more willing, more able. You've answered all their key questions. So really trying to leverage the data all the way through that decision-making journey. So from a client finding out about a need to finding out about us, and then kind of all the different ways, like meeting us here at CERAWeek. I mentioned like social media and LinkedIn. I think our sellers forget that when they make a cold call appointment, the client is also checking them out. What's their social media profile? Yeah. Do they have interesting things to share? Are they thought leaders? And again, we're helping our sellers become more social beacons of all the good things that we can offer for the client. And again, it just makes them a much more faster, more kind of natural conversation to have with the client.
So we're probably the first ones to mention AI in this whole conference, I'll bet.
I think
right?
we are. I think we got away with it. Yeah, I think we're good.
No, I think the exciting thing about that is we're just in its infancy as what it can do, not just in engineering and these other things that we're hearing about, but in sales and in business development. It's bringing a lot of powerful tools. And we're pleased that we get to partner with you guys in a piece of that with our technology that integrates into the CRM. But ultimately, I think, what I hope you heard from Patrick, and I know I started by depressing everyone a little bit with the data that showed the not so great side of sales. The good side is, and what Black Veatch is experiencing, is that when you have discipline, when you have process, bringing a common methodology, a common approach, the results are real. Our research is showing that most organizations that have a dynamic process and dynamic methodology embedded in the organization are seeing about a 26-27% increase in win rates and about a 48% increase in quota attainment.
Yeah. We've seen, so a good example for us is the more we sell to the same account, we know we're doing the right thing. That's our simple strategy, is help them by selling more of all the toolbox that we have to do that. And that's gone up about 37% last year. And it really was just by being a lot more open and transparent and digitizing our account planning. So whether it's the CEO or the executive team, all the way through to procurement, legal, everyone else, even the safety teams are sharing data through our Salesforce instance. And it's helping us just be, what the client doesn't want is a lot of noise where the left hand and the right hand don't know what's going on their properties. So they're different levels in the headquarters all the way through to their field assets around the world. Bringing all that together demonstrates that you have empathy for what they're trying to do and you're meeting them where they need you right now to do that.
So last question. What excites you as you look forward, as not just Black Veatch, but just in general in the industry?
I think we're at the cusp of just so much growth, and the demand for all good things that everyone here at CERAWeek is trying to deliver is just super motivating about building out our economies, building out new communities, doing the right thing for the environment, while also creating a lot of much needed, I think, security, just about whether it's in your personal life, all the way through to national security as well. So I think we're creating new routes and new ways to kind of connect the world together, and it's exciting to be part of that. I think also it's a great career time, Jamey, to be in the energy infrastructure world as well. It's certainly changed from when I was there, hanging on the side of oil rigs in my 20s, but it's bringing in new skills, new needs that we haven't seen before, and I think it's exciting, and the world needs just so much more people, great technologies, and super amazing things that happen that I'm happy to be a little proud of it and catalyze it ahead of us.
Well, I want to thank you for agreeing to do this today. I want to thank you for the way you've led and innovated in all of this. Looking forward to continuing the conversation. And we want to thank all of you for being here with us today. Again,
thank you, Jamey.
What we hope you hear from this is that process matters, having discipline around that structure, and we'd be happy to talk to you about what that looks like if you want to continue the conversation. So
I would say process matters. It's good to be more data savvy. Use your data. You have huge amounts of it. Most of it's underused. And it drives entitlement to go talk to the client. And we still need great humans. People buy from humans, which is super important too. I like that, being a human.
I like that part too. Well, thank you so much, Patrick.
Cheers,
thank
Jamey.
you all for being here.
We might have some...
We have time for... So we do have some time for some questions, if anybody's got a question.
Hi, I lead a globally distributed sales force as well. Probably a little bit smaller than yours though. But, some days I feel like I'm teaching Miller-Heiman basics of green sheets and blue sheets, and some days I think I'm looking at, how do I use AI to use my tech stack to analyze, what's succeeded and failed. In your experience, how have you looked at your sales process and identified where are the best opportunities for improvement?
Yeah, it's like any process. I think when I did Miller-Heiman, it was out of a book, right? And we had Xeroxes, and probably I'm dating myself, Matthew, there to do that. I think just trying to make it live, and I think people really get, can I understand the client and just the basics? Do they have budget? Do they have need? Do they have what's the timeline? Some of those obvious things people want to short circuit and go straight to maybe the gold sheet, and we keep saying just go back to the blue and the green. You'll find a lot of nuggets there that you haven't answered. And if you can answer those basic ones, then maybe it's a good time for your territory management, good time for you to spend with the client. You're not wasting their time either. Or maybe you work with your marketing team and do a lot more kind of nurturing in advance to do that so that you get the client ready, so to speak, to be more informed about what you can do to help them to do that. So I think we focus less on the nomenclature and more about are we really adding value to the client? And we look at other ways to augment that, like can we maybe work on a panel with them? So we kind of try to create their brand and profile with them. We do a lot of innovating together, maybe co-invest with tech companies and things like that. So we're looking at different ways where that account relationship isn't just based on transactional dollars, but it's also based on all the many ways that you can both directly and indirectly create value with your clients as well. And that ultimately gets recorded in a system of record, and then everyone can kind of swarm around that and understand their roles to play around that.
I think too, from my side, just realizing, I mean, I joke a lot that if my job was ever to teach people how to fill out sheets, I would not do this job anymore. I want them executing on the process, being strategic in the pursuit of their opportunities, being customer focused in the way they engage with their clients. You know, by leveraging things like scorecards and stuff, what we've found is we can get rid of some of the manual labor of filling out a sheet when it's not really going to add that value, and start to analyze and assess, is this a good opportunity to be pursuing? Does it have the right ingredients for success? Should you burn those sales calories on it? And if yes, then let's dive deep, let's run a strategy. But if not, let's cut, let's move on, and let's find something that's worth our time.
I was looking at another feature in one of our tech stacks, and now it's doing things like psychological profiles. A little scary. So it says, we think this person you want to sell to is a Myers-Briggs of this kind of personality. Therefore, maybe you should think about being more data-driven or more collaborative or more kind of assumptive, right, to do that. So
Pull that stuff right off their online profiles.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's looking at what's out there on their YouTube and LinkedIn and corporate bios. So it's fair game. And I know too, working on the procurement side, procurement are doing it too on the sellers, and they're much more sophisticated. So I think it's everything you said there, Matthew. We have to use all of it. Yeah.
A big piece for us, what we're realizing is just the fact that if we've got to learn to elevate our sellers into being trusted partners with the client, which means we have to stop focusing on our own stuff, stop focusing on what we're trying to sell, and start focusing on their needs and helping them accomplish their goals, which I think is something that Black Veatch does so well. Is when we can get in that position, what we found is buyers will actually engage with sellers much earlier in the decision process. If they see us as being focused on them and what they're trying to accomplish, not on me and what I'm trying to sell them, it's a different world. Now, that's a hard thing to do sometimes, because sellers obviously are A, motivated to sell, and B, paid to sell. But when we can get them to realize your job is really to be that trusted partner, to get yourself into that position by bringing perspective, bringing insight, bringing expertise to the conversation that sheds a new light on what they're trying to solve, it is a game changer from that perspective. So,
Absolutely.
yes.
Sorry?
See you out there.
Are there any AI tools or applications that you have your eye on in terms of being able to help integrate and build your sales business?
Yeah, I don't think I'm sponsored by anyone, so I'm gonna be that. But I think all of the companies out there are very, very dynamic right now. So I think it's a very moving space to do that. And some of the bigger companies have a lot of agents, and you'll kind of see what probably they're going to start to consolidate and do more and more of the big tech. You know, we're also a Microsoft Office user, so we've got kind of AI within our kind of regular communications platform. And when you start to bring in too many competing AIs, whether it's from Adobe or Salesforce or from some of the smaller boutiques, we're also worried about our sellers getting confused or overwhelmed, or AI undoing someone else's good AI to do that. So I think it's good to have a very clear roadmap about your data architecture, good idea too about your vendor relation, where you want to go. I would say some of the bigger companies aren't as advanced, but they typically get there, and then I think they follow through with more sales support and more ideas to kind of bring down the cost as well to do that. But offline, I can share with you some of the tools that we've looked at and enjoy using. Yeah, for sure.
And I'll do a cheap plug. I'll tell you that, you know, one of the things when Korn Ferry bought Miller Hyman, they did bring a level of access to Salesforce.com and Microsoft Dynamics that we did not have ourselves. And in that, we've been able to develop, you know, our plug-in tools now that we're just starting, I think, to kind of just break the surface of what we can do with AI in it. But even in that stage, we're able to analyze opportunities in a way that can coach a seller without a manager having to engage at that time on what's missing in the strategy. Where do you have gaps? Where do you have holes? Where do you have weaknesses? And we can give guidance and feedback without it having to require people being in an hour-long meeting every time. So we are getting there as well.
But I mean, I like simple things like, let's find a meeting time where we can both meet, or translate the minutes from an online call and have actions done within minutes versus days or weeks later. That's very, very helpful.
Yes, yeah.
To do that. We're investing though in humans as well. So we're creating with Jamey's help, we're creating a new tranche of sales development representatives. So these are early career kind of outbound sales and marketing support that are really helping our key accounts get even more quality time in front of the client, and they're going to spend a lot of time with the cool tools, which they enjoy, they grew up with, and really help us just be a lot more relevant and timely in front of the client.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you all very much.
Our time for questions is unfortunately over, so I can have everyone join me in thanking Jamey and Patrick for their insightful conversation.
Thank you. Jamey,
Thank you very much.
Nice job, man.
Enjoyed it.